Hi, I'm Heather, a certified personal trainer, yoga instructor, and have my BSN in exercise science and behavioral coaching from Arizona State University. I currently live in Oregon with my 3 kids, who I will reference often.
And I'm Britt, a former Division I collegiate athlete turned recreational triathlete and fitness instructor. I have a degree in exercise biology from UC Davis, and I currently live in Belgium with my husband and fur kids.
Together, we're best friends wanting to bring the world of health and fitness back to a more grounded and balanced place that's accessible to everyone.
Each episode, we're going to talk about ways to live out a well-rounded and healthy life that makes sense in today's modern, busy world. We'll cover topics related to exercise, nutrition, mindset, mental health, competition, and so much more.
So sit back, sign up, and let's get ready to
race to wellness. At the end of my workout today, though, I had to add in hip flexor strength exercises because I'm like, they're so weak now.
Yep.
I don't know how they got weak, but over the past 6 months, they've just become terrible. And so I'm like, all right, I could stretch these all I want, but they're still not strong enough for me to do work on. So they're always going to be hurting.
Yeah. Well, because you're hosting a podcast.
Because I'm sitting here all day.
Yep. What we do. I literally was so funny. I was thinking about I should do a video about what I do in a day. And no, it would just be me at a computer staring. That's not interesting, Heather. Oh my gosh. You ready to do this?
So ready.
Ready. All right. Today on the Race to Wellness podcast, we're going to be talking about building mental toughness and all of the things that entails.
What?
What? I'm so excited. Yeah.
Me too.
When you think of mental toughness, what do you think of?
The first thing that pops into my brain are long endurance, obstacle course races.
Yeah.
Because I used to do a lot of those and got very involved into that culture for a while. And I can just see people on Instagram or Facebook, posting these videos being like, you gotta hang on, you can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of things that anything with high intensity that takes a longish amount of time, at least a long time, or I don't know. I'm I did a workout at CrossFit this week that the workout part of it was really only about 20 minutes. And yet I was ready to die. But you have to have that mental stamina of keep going. It was 15 rounds of something. And so knowing that there's an end point, but having to push yourself to get through that, yeah. Anything that requires, that is hard for your body and hard for your mind, and you have to push through.
Yeah. Recently, though, well, not recently, but for me, the mental toughness that I've found in my own training and exercise has been through running, because my body is fine. My cardiovascular is fine, but my brain has been getting bored. And it was telling me that, no, you should stop and walk, even though I'm not breathing hard. I'm not in pain anywhere. And I can tell that I'm just I'm having the thought of I should stop and walk because I haven't trained my mind enough to withstand this 60-minute run. And so at 40 minutes in, it's going to tell you need to stop and walk, even though I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah. Dude, it's so interesting, thinking about our brains telling us something. We are our minds, and yet we don't always have control over where the thoughts are coming from and what's happening with them. And so we have to respond on the other side of it. Okay, these thoughts are coming in. What am I doing with that information? If my brain is telling me you need to stop doing this because it feels like it's your body is under attack, but you're no, I know that I've got this. Yeah, I know what you're capable of. I've fueled you properly. We can do this. I've trained you. Yeah. And so overcoming that. Yeah.
It takes a lot to be able to do that, though, consistently.
Yeah. I think a lot of it comes down to emotional regulation and being able to manage your emotions. I know, if I'm experiencing any sort of major stressors in my life, that kind of stuff, then my mental toughness kind of goes out the window. Like
Yeah.
some of it, like I think about like the end of my pregnancy, like
Mhm.
the mental toughness to get through it was obviously there because I didn't have a choice and I had to go through that process. But at the same time, like I was definitely like losing it at the end of it, where it was like, I don't have a choice but to go through this, but I'm not emotionally regulated. I am frustrated.
Yeah.
I am tired. I'm exhausted and I want to be done.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
like your brain only has enough capacity to deal with so
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah.
And then it's done.
Yeah. Yeah. I always get worried about like my emotional control, not for myself, like, but because for other people, because
Mhm.
like it's all happening in your head. Like fear does not exist outside of your body. It's
Mhm.
a really interesting thing. And so for me, as I'm having those experiences, I don't necessarily like talk about that I'm nervous or that um I'm drained or I'm overstimulated, overwhelmed, any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't talk about it to other people, but I'm fully aware of it and conscious of it the whole time that it's happening. And yet so I always fear that other people are going to get that from me. Like they're going to
Mhm.
feel, oh, Heather's stressed today, or Heather's angry, or Heather's whatever. And yet, like, they're like, I had no idea what that was happening. Like,
Right.
I was freaking out.
Yeah. You're a
Yeah.
mystery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think mental
Yeah.
toughness also, we think of it like I know that both of our examples was around like fitness activities, so around going on a long run or doing something like that. But we can also build mental toughness around just daily stuff, like
Mhm.
around doing the dishes when you don't want to, around doing your laundry when you don't want to, around like getting up and going to your job, that sort of stuff. Like
Yeah.
all of those activities, doing things that we don't necessarily like enjoy or have like they don't create joy for us.
Yeah.
um Pushing through and doing them still, that builds mental toughness within us.
Yeah. And
That sounds like shit though. I was just thinking about like how many things in our life do we do that we don't actually like? So many.
everything.
Everything, all
All
the
the adult tasks. Great.
hmm right. What a strange way to live.
I know. Well, when you bring it up like that, when you mention like these are the tasks you don't want to do, but you do them anyways,
Hmm.
I equate then the thought and the words of mental toughness over to discipline because
Yeah.
you have built up, maybe it's a habit or this is just your routine and you are disciplined for your routine and you will do. I will go to work and then I will come home and after dinner
Hmm.
I will do the dishes and then we will put the kids to bed and take a shower and it's just all these things that maybe they are not fun for you but you do them anyways and
Yeah.
it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily bother you on a day-to-day
Yeah.
basis.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. I also think it's important. I'm like, this is kind of an aside from the topic, but I think it's super important to find joy in those things, even though you don't
Mhm.
necessarily enjoy doing them, but finding a way to make it
Mhm.
something you can find pleasure in. So, like doing the dishes, I I like doing the dishes in the morning when it's quiet. There's nobody
Mhm.
else around. It's kind of like a meditation for me to just be calm and quiet. I put on my headphones a lot of times and just do the dishes. And that's my way of making it joyful. I think that a lot of times we think of like to your point of discipline or mental toughness, like equating those two things together. I think a
Mhm.
lot of times we think of I have to be disciplined in everything in my life. And so then
Right.
if we dive into it like that, like if I am changing something about my routine, if I'm changing becoming like I'm doing my diet and I'm doing my exercise at the same time, like those are two very big things that we're trying to take on at the same time, and
Yeah.
that can be super overwhelming. And we're not going to get to a point of disciplined with that if our body can't or our brain can't process what's going on. So it's super
Mhm.
important to start with smaller tasks and like slowly build up to those bigger things. Like if I'm going to
Yeah.
change my diet, say I want to cut out processed foods, I'm going to start with cutting out one processed food that I eat per day, perhaps, and do that for a week. see how it goes, see how I'm feeling in my body, and then add in some more. And then from there, I would say, then I'm like, okay, so now that I've cut these things out, I'm feeling like maybe I'm in a calorie deficit. I don't know what to be eating. So then I want to add foods back into my diet. So then
Mm-hmm.
that's another step in the process. And then eventually, along the way, after you do step by step these little things, then you get to a point where you're like, wow, I'm really disciplined in my eating. And
Yeah.
I don't question, I don't jump to snack food. I don't eat the junk all the time. I just eat. I suddenly my diet is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it can be really overwhelming to do it all at once, anyways. So if you
Mhm.
have 10 steps to get you from your current state of here's where my diet is and my exercise to
Yeah.
where I'd like to be, if you take all 10 steps at once, it's going to be a much more difficult path to get there because you have to now change 10 different things. You have to
Yeah.
remember about changing 10 different things, and you might
Yeah.
be unhappy about changing 10 different things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if it's already something that you maybe don't enjoy, so like
Mm-hmm.
thinking about like, I don't enjoy eating vegetables at every meal. Maybe that's what it is. So if you're suddenly adding something into your life that you don't particularly enjoy, your brain is going to go hard stop. The answer is no. Like, and
Yeah.
it's gonna, you'll forget, or you'll feel angry about it, or you'll feel sad, or something else will, like some emotion will come up in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And it may make it impossible or make it incredibly challenging for you to do it.
Yeah.
It, yeah. Um, I know that I struggle. I'm sure that a lot of our listeners do too, but I struggle with my self-talk sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know that especially when I'm doing something that's really challenging, that voice, it's, I feel like mine comes from a place of fear, of
Yeah.
like, yeah, fear of like making an ass of myself, especially in the gym. Like that's where mine comes from, is I don't want to pick up the weight that might be too heavy for me and then fail. And
Sure.
that's something that I work on, or I don't want to be the last one to finish. And so
Mm.
rather than doing that, I would rather just not start. And that's not a good place to be. And once I'm in it, then that self-talk kind of shifts. I find that once I'm in it, once I'm started in something, my self-talk is much better of like, okay, you thought you couldn't do it and then you're here doing it and we're not going to quit. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
not, quitting is not an option for me. And so, yeah, like I feel much better that way. But
Yeah.
getting started is that hard part.
Especially if you're coming from the point of view of I don't want to be the last one or I don't want to be the worst at this,
Mhm. Yeah.
because I can think of nobody who wants to be last at something.
Yeah.
And so if you're coming from it from the point of view of you're already believing you're going to be last, it's going to be difficult for you to want to start anything
Yeah.
in that area.
Yeah. Because you kind of have to start out being the worst at it or the last person in the
Or at least
marathon, in the
towards the
race.
bottom.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and also thinking of it, like reframing it a little bit and seeing, but I am doing better than all those people on the couch, or I'm doing better than
Hmm.
myself that was sitting on the couch and not doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I ran my half Ironman race, I finished fourth. I think there were four people that finished after me. So I was
Okay.
almost last. And
Almost
I took
last.
pride in the fact that I wasn't last.
Hmm.
But like
Yeah.
I emailed the company because on their website they said that there was a cutoff of, I think it was like 7 hours or something,
Hmm.
that you had for the race. And I was like, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it in 7 hours. Like
Yeah.
that with where I'm at training wise and just this being my very first one, I'm just not sure I'm going to be able to do that. And I emailed them and I said, is there any leeway on this or should I
Hmm.
just not
Not
come?
do it. Yeah.
And luckily the company that I did it with, it's called Y Racing. It's up near the Pacific Northwest. It's a great company.
Yeah. We'll put a
Um,
link down below for you guys.
but they're an amazing company to work with. And they emailed me back saying, don't worry about it. Like, we are here for everybody. They want everybody to have a good time and finish because they
Oh,
are
that's awesome.
there to build that community and foster that environment of anyone can do this, a beginner or a pro.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love when
Mhm.
companies are supportive of that kind of stuff, like pushing you, challenging you, giving you a time cap so that you do push
Mhm.
yourself and challenge yourself, and yet like accepting everybody exactly where they are.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's something that's one of the pillars of my business, and like that's super important to me is that like everybody, you are perfect in your own body exactly
Mhm.
as you are, and you have all the tools and all the knowledge in there. We just have
Yeah.
to unlock some of that for you, and I love that. I love, yeah, pushing people to be better versions of themselves and
Mhm.
yet understanding that you are perfect. Yep.
Do, do, do,
Cool.
do, 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 do.
Happy moment. I love it so much. I think one of the things that we really hit on when we were talking about, especially with like racing or going to do a class or something where there's other people involved, is just remembering that like not to compare ourselves with other
Yeah.
people. It's super important that we only compare ourselves with our previous version of ourselves. So the
Mhm.
me today wants to be stronger than the me of yesterday, and so I have to put in the hard work and do that, and not look
Yeah.
at somebody else and how successful they're being or how not successful. Because like thinking about, I would never, whoever comes in last in a class, if it wasn't me, I would never make them feel less than, or I would never make them feel poorly about coming in last. I would only encourage them. And so I can't imagine that anybody else would do that.
Mhm.
Like to me, like, but our self talk, the way that we talk to ourselves is really,
Yeah.
yeah, so important in order for us to be
Mhm.
successful.
Yeah, like I would never tell that, like say those types of things to somebody else or somebody in my
Hmm.
class or my friends or my family. I wouldn't go up to them and be like, "You finished last. That's pretty lame,
Hmm.
loser."
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then if I'm physically running the race and I come in last, my brain is going
Hmm.
to be like, "Wow, you came in absolute dead last. You're
Yeah.
trash."
Right. Yeah.
But a great way to reframe that would be, "Hey, I finished this
Hmm.
whatever, or I took on this challenge and conquered it." And that would have been a great way to have reframed whatever it was. And that's how I treated my half Ironman because
Hmm.
I was not in the great place training wise for it. There was no reason for me to believe that I could make it under that time gap or whatever.
Yeah.
And I did not, but I got pretty close. It's fine. I
Yeah.
was almost at what my goal was. My goal was 8 hours. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that might have been what the actually 8 hours might have been the cutoff that they
The
said. And I was like,
cutoff.
I don't think because what it was you need to pick up your bike by 8 hours. And I was like, I
Oh,
don't think
okay.
I'll be done by then.
Yeah.
Like
Oh,
that, because that would have meant that I would have had to finish in like 7 hours and then go over and get all my stuff. And I was like, I don't think I'll be done. Will somebody still be there watching my bike while I'm still running? And they said, yes,
yeah.
don't
I'm like,
worry. We will have people until the very end.
oh,
Thank
good. I was gonna
God.
say, what if you're out on the course? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Not start the last event if you don't think that you're gonna, that would suck.
Usually what happens is like they have if you have a time cutoff at an event or something, they have sweepers that come through and
Hmm.
they know like you are not going to finish by this
Yeah.
amount of time. So we're going to grab you and they'll put you in the van or whatever. Sounds so
Okay.
creepy. Grab you and
That
put
does
you in a
sound really
van.
good. Yeah. That does sound
But like they
creepy.
usually like bring you back to the course and you don't finish, or they'll send you like a modified way back, like a shortcut. And
Oh,
so you
okay.
won't have finished the full course, but you'll still run all the way back in, just maybe
Yeah.
minus a few miles.
Yeah. I think that's a good option, especially if you are like insistent that you want to finish the race. Like, that's a
Hmm.
nice little buffer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking about your race, I'm like, you probably like failing, right? So not
Hmm.
hitting your time deadline on that probably taught you more
It did.
than finishing finishing on time. Yeah.
It totally did because I learned not only about I can do this and I can
Mhm.
finish it because the beginning of that race I've got great stories about too.
Yeah.
But it taught me like this is how you would do it next time,
Mhm.
or these are the things that you could improve upon
Yeah.
when you decide to do this again.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of those things like contribute to building your mental toughness. So
Mhm.
pushing through even when you're uncomfortable, even when you're afraid, even if you think you're going to finish last, like still continuing on toward the goal
Yeah.
and accepting imperfection, that helps to build your mental toughness. Somebody
Yeah.
said to me one time, where I read somewhere, that like in order to be successful, you should fail as many times as quickly as possible as you can, so that you know what works and what
Mm-hmm.
doesn't in order to be successful, and kind of overcoming that fear around just starting. Like that's really where I
Yeah.
struggle, just getting started on a goal. Once
Mm-hmm.
I'm there and started, I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, like I have capacity to learn, I am excited once I'm doing something. But like really that first step, my perfectionism takes over, and I get like fearful, and I don't even
Yeah.
get started on something sometimes. Yeah, that's where I struggle.
Yeah. Or like I have that same issue of my quality of my work, of whatever it is, I'm writing something or I'm making something, it's not good
Hmm.
enough for people. According to me, it's not good enough for anybody. And so why
Yeah.
should I put it out into the world? It's not valuable. But
Yeah,
it probably is valuable,
it
not
is.
only for someone to read or to watch or whatever, but to teach me how to
Hmm.
make it better next time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Cool.
Oh, self-talk. Yeah,
It's hard to self-talk.
it is so hard. Yep. One of the strategies that I use a lot is the word pause.
Mhm.
It always makes me think of How I Met Your Mother, about how, like, in their
Yes.
relationship with Lily, they would just say pause and then like go have sex or whatever. That's what I think of
Yeah.
when I think of pause. But in my personal life, I think of pause a lot, like especially when I'm noticing self-talk. Like, first
Mhm.
of all, recognizing that you're experiencing negative self-talk is really hard. But once
Yeah.
you're at a point where you start to notice it, then using the word pause to be like, full stop on what we're doing right now. This is not how I want to talk to myself. And then choosing to engage with yourself in a different way, or reframing the information that your brain is giving you. If it's saying something
Yeah.
negative, be like, okay, what are you actually trying to tell me? What are you trying to get me to do? Because that's coming from somewhere. And
Mhm.
so if our brains think that being rude to us is going to get us to the goal, that's what it's going to do. And I
Yeah.
would much rather live in an environment where my self-talk is positive, because that's been shown to get me to the goal, not negative.
Yeah. It's also really hard though to recognize that you're in any sort of
Hmm.
negative self-talk, but then
Yeah.
if you do recognize that you're in it, like then knowing what to say to yourself to get out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like it would be
That.
helpful to like write down like in your phone a
Hmm.
pep talk for yourself or something. Like when you're in a good
Oh yeah.
space, write that out in your phone. And then if you notice that you're in like a bad space and you say pause to yourself,
Hmm.
know that you need to go then to your phone and read off your pep talk to yourself.
I love that. I think we should do that, and I'm going to put a link down below for you guys. We'll write up a little pep talk for you guys to just have to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that'll be
had
so
one of
cool.
those
Do you?
when I quit my, well, it's not a pep talk, but it is a email of like encouragement or just nice words and things. So when I quit my
Yeah.
job to move to Belgium, um, so many of my team members wrote me these really amazing
Oh,
emails and comments that I saved them all in an email and I sent it to
yeah.
myself and I titled it something like when you need it most or something like that so that
Oh,
I would remember. I'm gonna cry.
I know. I'm like,
But
that
so that
makes
I
me
would
so
remember that
happy.
I was accomplished and like had all of these people who thought that I was the bee's
Yeah.
knees. Oh my God. I didn't think I would get
Brit.
emotional about that.
Oh my gosh. But I totally get it. Yeah, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just gonna sit in a moment of silence for you. That's so sweet.
So a moment of silence for Brittany's hard work in the past.
Hmm. That's awesome. I love that. I love it so much. Yeah, just recognizing. So recognition, so starting with the root word of that is cognition, which is
Mm-hmm.
defined as a mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through thought, experience, and the senses. And so
Yeah.
recognition is changing that thought process, or being aware of that thought process, or experience, or how you're gaining that knowledge. Um, so when we recognize something, we're adjusting the way that we're understanding it. Does that make sense? Like this morning when I was thinking about it, I was like,
Yeah.
that is how I think of it in my brain. It's about changing or having an understanding, a different concept of the way that I'm understanding information.
I've never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Because whenever I think of the word recognition,
Hmm.
like I think of like I see something and I know what it is.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
recognize that.
Yeah.
But I
I
never
could see that.
associated it with like we are reframing essentially what this is in our
Yeah.
brain so that it makes sense to how we think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Language is so funny. Tom Hiddleston talked about, there was like this little soundbite clip or whatever from an interview that he talks about the fact that there are an infinite number of emotions and
Yeah.
experiences in the world, and we have a limited number of words that we use in order to describe those, and yet we're able to convey those emotions to other people. Like
Yeah.
that ability is powerful. Yeah,
Hmm. It's
so
also
cool.
interesting based on just cultures because
Hmm.
different cultures have words for
Hmm.
different emotions that other cultures don't have. And so
Yeah.
it'll be like, oh, this is blah, blah, blah. And you'll say, oh, okay, what is that in English or what is that in whatever language? And they won't know how to describe it because there is no word for that in your language.
Yeah.
So, like, one of them, it has nothing to do with emotion, but um,
Yeah.
it's a Berkelek. I'm saying it horribly.
Okay.
So, all of you Dutch speaking people, don't at me in the comments. But
Sorry.
when our Dutch speaking Nanger or Netherlands, because it's not Dutch,
Yeah.
it's Netherlands, speaking neighbor was trying to describe what it was to us. There isn't like a word for it in English. And so he was having
Yeah.
a really hard time being like, it means this. And so essentially
Yeah.
it's um like a neighborhood of people who are like set in their routines and their ways, like they're
Mhm.
not like partier type people, or maybe they are, but like they're people who like they get up, they go to work, they have families. Like
Yeah.
the neighborhood is very Berkeley, and like it, the closest thing we could come to kind of was like a suburb, but it wasn't quite a
Okay.
suburb. But it was just
Interesting.
interesting having like this experience, being like firsthand, they're trying to figure out what this word means when
Mhm.
there's clearly a word for it in this language
Yeah.
and nothing in this language.
Yeah. Yeah, because we have such different experiences in life.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah.
thinking like all of that made me think of like kids. Like
Yeah.
the fact that children are born experiencing emotions, but we have to teach them what those are and how to
Yeah.
recognize them and experience them. And yet like thinking about like how would I describe sadness to a child? Like I could explain my experiences, but I don't know that I could explain what sadness feels like in my body, or happiness or
Yeah.
joy or any of that kind of stuff, and about how we teach people
Hmm.
how to experience that and
Yeah. Especially
recognizing it.
when
Yeah.
something happens and you say, like, are you feeling sad about this? If they don't know what sad
Mhm.
is,
Yeah.
maybe they aren't
They're
feeling sad about it. Maybe they're feeling angry about it.
right, exactly. I'm like, where do you feel it in your body? Are you feeling it in your stomach? Are you feeling it in your heart, your chest? Like,
Hmm.
where are you experiencing that in your body?
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
like you could be having very different emotions to the same event
Mhm.
as somebody else.
Yes.
One could be
Yes.
happy about it and one could be sad about it.
Yeah. That makes me think of Inside Out when
Yeah.
the main character, when she goes from experiencing singular emotions, sadness,
Hmm.
happiness, that kind of stuff, and then suddenly it's a blend of emotions. Like I'm sad that I'm moving away from my family or from my friends, but I'm so excited about my new adventure. Like I have,
Yeah.
yeah, multiple emotions about this.
Yep.
Yeah. All of that to say, recognizing emotions and experiences in your body is kind of a key factor in being able
Mhm.
to shift the way that you're thinking, and and um, build mental toughness, or build emotional resilience is another term
Yeah.
that you can use for it. Yeah. But you have to be able to recognize those things happening in your body. And so um, there are times when like in my body, I'm starting to experience something. And something to know is that emotions in our body only last about 7 seconds. That's
Yeah.
how long hormonally they last in our body. And then we perpetuate them with our mind. And so having that understanding, being able to recognize that you're experiencing an emotion about something, fear, anger, sadness, joy, whatever the emotion is, especially in times of challenge, the fear. So recognizing the fear in your body and then being able to take a breath, take a step back, recognize that you're experiencing that, allow that
Mm-hmm.
physical emotion and reaction to pass, and then choose your path forward. So we're talking about, it seems very like ethereal or like new age or strange that we're talking about our mindset and our mental experience around things and our emotional state around things, but thinking about each of those experiences or each of those emotions in a singular way,
Mhm.
and taking baby steps to change them. So the ones that we were talking about or thinking about are like fear, we've talked about, maybe some nervousness um, around starting a fitness routine or really anything in your life if you're experiencing nervousness or hesitation around it. um, Taking notice of those times that you're experiencing
Mhm.
anxiety around it, and then making the choice, maybe not even shifting in the moment to change it, but just starting out by noticing it. That's a small step that you can take. And then
Yeah.
taking a small step to maybe write it down or just acknowledge what's happening in your body and take notice of, like, I'm feeling this in my belly, I'm feeling this in my chest, I'm feeling this in
Mhm.
my, wherever you're experiencing it, taking notice of that before you even start to think about making any changes.
Yeah. I like that suggestion of just writing it down, like in the
Mm-hmm.
moment of, and maybe you don't have a pen and paper and you just pull out your phone and you put a little note in your phone that says
Mm-hmm.
2 p.m., feeling nervous, unsure
Yeah,
why. Or maybe you do know why and you can put why you're feeling nervous there next to it.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've talked about, so you're taking notice of your emotional experience, what's happening in your body, where you're physically. So that's the acknowledgement portion. First, you notice it, then you acknowledge it. And then making that connection that there's a pattern that's happening. Maybe I always feel nervous when I think about going to the gym or when I think about
Mhm.
going to work or whatever that is. And then making the next step is then making a choice to change that experience. And so,
Yeah.
so when we are feeling anxious or nervous or fearful about something, when we choose to push through that emotion, our brain is forced to relearn our patterns. And it's like, okay, every other time leading up to this point, I have chosen to live in that fear and not start the project, not do the
Mhm.
thing that I want to do. So when we make that choice to then this time I did it, our brain goes, what the heck is happening? And it creates new connections. It relearns from that experience, or not relearns from that experience, but it learns from that experience that, like, hey, last time we did something that was completely different, and then we were successful at it. So maybe this time I won't be as fearful. I won't be as
Yeah.
nervous this time because I have that strength. I have that understanding of past success that I'm going to build on now and move forward into being that person.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah. That's what I do in behavioral coaching. I just realized as I'm going through it, I'm like, oh my God, good job.
That's my
So good.
job. I do that with people.
I teach them that they can be successful. Or not teach them. I'm like, I just literally like talk with you and let you get to that point of learning, so that you can understand that you're successful and you can be successful. It's so
Yeah.
cool. What a fun thing.
What a fun
Yeah.
day. Are you taking on new clients?
I am taking on new clients. Yeah.
Oh,
Ooh, if you're interested, check out down below. We've got a link to my website, and I would love to talk with you. If you're like, man, I am stuck. I start a new diet or I start a new fitness routine, and 4 weeks later, I'm not doing it anymore, and I don't know how to get out of that pattern, reach out to me. I can help.
cool.
Cool. I think that it's super important to understand that, like, we're talking about all of this in a super positive way. We're talking about this as if it's so simple, right? It's so
Yeah.
simple to just like notice that this is happening, and then I acknowledge it, and then I
Yeah.
recognize the pattern, and then I change it. That sounds like great. That sounds awesome. I would love to do that all the time. But when you're going through this, it's not going to feel that simple. And you're going to have setbacks where you're like, man, I was so anxious all day today, and I did not recognize it until 10 p.m. that I was anxious all day. Why did I not notice it? Like, those moments are going to happen, and that's completely okay. And you're going to have setbacks where you're like, I completely abandoned ship on noticing my thought processes and my awareness around emotions at all this week, based on stress, based on family, based on whatever is happening in your life. And that's totally okay. It's okay to have those setbacks and then just dive back in and be like, okay, let's restart today. I'm going to notice anytime that I'm feeling happy, anytime I'm feeling scared, anytime I'm feeling whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
making that choice to dive back into it, even when you have the setbacks.
Yeah. I will say that I feel like mental toughness is something that some people don't think of necessarily in a positive light, if
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. Like, so from the very beginning, when we were talking about this, and I mentioned that the first thing that pops into my head is like a long distance obstacle course race and the
Mm-hmm.
mental toughness that comes from needing to finish all of it and get through it and keep going, and you build that.
Mm-hmm.
There will be people who do not find that fun and will never find that fun, even if they have plenty of mental toughness. And the thought of mental toughness being revolved around that, or like centered
Mm-hmm.
around that for them, is not a good thing. It's not a happy thing. And it will probably shy them away from it, I guess. I don't quite
Yeah.
know where I'm going with this thought, but in my brain, it like makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I could see it. I'm like, I can, yeah. I was thinking, shit, I had a thought and I don't
Oh
know
no.
what it was. I don't know. Oh, I know what it was. I'm like, mine is kind of off topic, but what kind of? So we're talking about changing your emotional process, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
differentiate between that and like emotional suppression, which is not what we're talking about. We're not
Yeah.
talking about like ignoring or not talking about our fear or getting rid of our fear in our body, because I feel like that's a really, our fear in our body is a natural response, or anxiety, nervousness,
Mm-hmm.
hesitation, insecurity, all of those are our bodies signaling to us like, hey, this is new and a little bit scary. Maybe you should take a moment to think about it.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to stop that process. We're trying to use that process to help us be better or to be successful in something. So
Mm-hmm.
taking those moments when we're experiencing those, not suppressing them, pushing them down, pushing them away, but taking those and going like, my body is telling me that I'm new at this and that I'm a little bit anxious and nervous, and I'm going to choose to go through it fearfully,
Mm-hmm.
and come out the other side and see how it went. Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's definitely a difference between recognizing that you
Mm-hmm.
are a little anxious or hesitant about something
Yeah.
and telling yourself, okay, I recognize that I am this, but I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
keep going because it's
Yeah.
safe for me to do whatever the thing is that you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
versus feeling hesitant and insecure about something that might be dangerous. And
Yeah.
so you're recognizing that you're
Yes.
hesitant and insecure about it and maybe not going through with it because that's maybe a not good thing to
Right.
do.
This is our body signaling, being like, maybe you shouldn't jump off of that bridge. That's not
Exactly.
helpful. That's not good
It's
for you. There's
exactly.
another TED talk actually that I was thinking of. I'll link it down below for you guys too. But there's a TED talk where a woman talks about, if we, because when we are feeling anxious in our body or nervous, think
Mhm.
about like, if I'm going to do a public speaking event, right? I get a little bit sweaty, my heart rate goes up, my pupils dilate, I can't hear anything. Those sorts of things start happening in our body. And if you recognize those things as our body's way of preparing us for this challenge that we're about to face, rather than our body being like, no, don't do it. Like, but actually like our body is trying to help us prepare for it, helping amplifying those experiences and feelings. If we recognize that, then it completely changes the way that we experience that public speaking event or whatever challenge we're coming up against. I'll link it down below. She clearly is going to say it much better than I am, but it's the feeling that counts. It's really good. Okay, cool. So why do we do all this?
Why?
Why in the heck? Why in the heck would we spend any time focusing on this kind of stuff and building our mental toughness? Why? Why would we do it?
It sounds like a lot of work.
It does sound like a lot of work. It is a lot of work. Ongoing, forever and ever. You will always be
Never
working on this.
stops.
Nope. Yeah. There will be times for sure where people like, I know for myself that like I have times where I'm so good and so on it, and I'm like, and then other times I'm like, have I experienced emotions recently? Like, I don't know. Did I push
Just
through
living.
anything difficult? No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like at the end of pregnancy. At the end of pregnancy, like I did, like just getting to the end of pregnancy and having the baby was the extent of my mental toughness that I had available. Outside of
Yeah.
that, I was not trying anything new. I wasn't trying anything challenging for myself, nothing like that. Like my brain
Mhm.
was completely occupied. I had no
Yeah.
no extra data, no extra availability for any of that. But there's practical applications of this. So like if you are trying to do something that's really challenging, if you're trying to Brittany's point of like running a race, if you're trying to do a triathlon that's really challenging for you, or maybe it's a 5K, maybe it's a half marathon, whatever the difficulty level, it doesn't matter as long as it's relative to you, relative in intensity. Um, but pushing through that challenge and overcoming it, if you build your mental toughness on a regular basis, then when you do face those sorts of challenges, you're ready for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Or at least you're prepared enough with skills for them
Mhm.
to be able to tackle them. So you might not be necessarily ready completely for it, but you have
Yeah.
enough to get you started and keep you going.
Yeah. Things in your toolbox. This can be one of the
Your
things that are in your
toolbox.
toolbox of like, you know what I'm super good at? I'm really good at recognizing when I'm fearful of something or when I want to quit. I'm really good at understanding when I want to quit and pushing through and getting to
Mhm.
the end of it anyway. Yep. What are we talking about next week? I don't remember. Let's see.
Finishing a program,
Finishing a program.
pushing
Oh
through to
goodness.
the end.
Yeah, true story. True story. Yeah,
Yeah, because
indeed.
honestly, it can be difficult in the middle of a program and you might want to quit. So, working
Mhm.
on your mental toughness and keeping your why firmly planted inside you and
Mhm.
recognizing why you want to give up, all of these things will help you get to the end of maybe any sort of training that you're doing or training plan
Mhm.
or whatever.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I think of like right now because I'm going to Hawaii in April. I'm like that's where I'm focused, like dead aimed on it, and I'm like, okay, go,
That is the
let's
end
go.
of my training block.
Yep. Yeah, and then thinking about like, but then I'll be excited to start a new training plan at the end of that, and like, yep, 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 yep. So we did a lot of talking today about our own personal experiences with overcoming difficult things and challenges, and how we build mental toughness in our own selves. But I would encourage you guys to give it a try. Just spend some time this week recognizing what you're experiencing in your body when you are facing a challenge, and then maybe spend some time thinking about why you're experiencing that emotion or fear or whatever is happening in your body, and then work to overcome it. I
Yeah.
believe in you.
And this isn't a like one size fits all thing either. Some of the strategies that we've offered up might not be something that works out for you, but they also could be the best tool in your toolbox. So give them a try, see what you like and keep those ones, and then for whatever you might want to change and find a new tool for, you can reach out to Heather if you'd like for some sort of behavioral coaching. Again, her link is down below.
Mhm.
And yeah, we love
We'll see
you.
you
We'll
next
see you
week.
next week.
Yay. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us today at Race to Wellness. We hope it was both fun and informative for you. Make sure to join us for our next episode, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. Also, we'd love to keep the conversation going, so feel free to ask us any questions or leave us a comment down below. You can also send us an email at racetowellness2023@gmail.com and click on the links in the description to follow us on our social media platforms.